I'm here with Jeanne d'Arc Casas. She is a flamenco dancer and choreographer and a modern dancer also from Ay Bonito, Puerto Rico. And she's performed with Noche Flamenca. She's been a guest artist with Passione Arte and Zorongo Flamenco here in Minneapolis, and collaborated with some of the finest flamenco artists in Spain and in the US. Jeanne, thanks so much for sitting down to chat.
Thank you for inviting me. Hello, Minneapolis.
It's great to see you again. You were here, let's see, in 2019.
Yes,
Um,
last time I think it was April of last year.
Seems like a whole world
It
away.
seems like a world right now since time sort of stopped, and we see time differently after what's happening with everything in the world right
Hmm.
now. Definitely.
You're actually in Spain at the moment, right?
I am in Spain. I'm in Madrid. I arrived here in March to pursue my doctorate degree in humanities at the University of Carlos III, and I am conducting a investigation, like a historical investigation on women that danced in Puerto Rican women that danced in Spain with some of the most acclaimed artists by the 50s and 60s decades. And I'm just like investigating who these people were and sort of like writing their biographies and visualizing their stories, just to like keep constructing our past and our history, especially in dance, which is an art form that sometimes we don't take it as seriously as other art forms, I guess.
That's
That's
fascinating.
that's
So,
that's my
who?
topic.
Wow! And who are some of the artists that you're researching?
Well, recently I actually, one of my teachers, the person that introduced me into the dance world, her name was Milagros Vicente, and she passed away last Sunday. So it was like a very heavy news for me to know the bad news from here, that I can't do anything, that I was so far. And also, thankfully, I got to interview her twice before I left Puerto Rico, and she had an amazing life. She came here and danced in Sevilla and then in Madrid, and graduated from the Conservatory of Dance here in Madrid, which is a very important dance school, and I think it's the only Puerto Rican that have done that so far. And Juan Ramon Jimenez, which was this artist that wrote Platerio, and he received the Nobel Prize for Literature. He saw her dancing in Puerto Rico during the 50s, and he was the one that tried to help her out with writing some of her dance reviews, and like people here in Spain know her work and know her dancing. And so that's one. And then there's another dancer called Hilda Navarra, which also very important dancer that worked with Pilar Lopez and Jose Greco back in the day. And I couldn't interview her because she was older, and but I met her once, and she was an inspiration for me for one of the works that I did a couple of years ago in Puerto Rico, called Hijas de la Bernarda, which was like this dance theater work that involved the play of from Lorca, La Casa Bernarda Alba, House of Bernarda Alba. And it was like this theater play, like dance and music and theater combined together. And she was the inspiration of it because she did a choreography in 1974 about the same play. So there's people that I'm starting to also know, other people that haven't influenced me, but this idea of investigating these women happened or like occurred to me because they were close to me in a way, or they inspired my work in a way. So I started like asking myself, like, who came before, like what's the path that other people did in order for me to be here and like have an education, dance, and just like in the scholar world. But like I pay homage in a way to these women that danced before I did and taught me the things that I know right now, and are the reason why I'm fell in love with this art form. So I think it's important for the dance world and the dance community to rescue these people and just like visualize them for the next generations when they come and they ask. At least they know where to have some information, and maybe continue my work, or maybe help me out in the future to keep writing these stories.
Milagro was she your first dance teacher, or
Yes, I
she was
started
one
with
of?
her when I was 3.
Wow.
So all my life, and she was like more like into the classical Spanish dance, like all the repertory with falla and all the granados and all like the more stylized form of Spanish dance. But she also taught us regional dances like the jotas and all these other northern dances, and also the escuela bolera, which is like the dances from the 18th century. So it was like a more complete sort of background. And when I tapped into flamenco, I already knew these other dance forms that she sort of like introduced me to.
I mean, that sounds like a whole world that you could spend, years investigating and working in. And
Definitely,
I think that's
definitely.
fantastic that you'll be able to share that work with other people in other sectors of the dance world too.
It's important, and since I am a performer, that's what I do. I'm an actual dancer more than like an investigator, than a scholar. So I have like another experience, I would say, like when I read about these choreographies or like this repertory, like I know it, like I felt it, I've danced it, or I've seen it, or I've been close to people that did it. So I think it's gonna be a good way to share these investigations from a more like from a performer, because sometimes I see there's a lack sometimes between like the dance history world and the performers, or like the people that actually do dance, or like between the critics that write about dance or like write about performances, and then the people that actually do them or like spend the time on the rehearsal or like on stage. And then like you see like sometimes there's a lack of understanding like basic things about movement and body, like body and movement space.
Because I don't have a good sense of what your degree program looks like. I mean, do you perform excerpts of their choreographies, or do you have some of that on video, or?
No, it's basically the program is a lot of theory. It's like it's very free. Like there's no like that I have to go to a classroom. And nowadays, that's like out of the picture. But it's basically me. It's basically writing about like my findings. So it's very free in a way. So the performative part, I will have to do it like if I get into that, or like if I get the opportunity, to get some sort of work dancing, that will be like on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But probably like in the future, like when I'm done, maybe I could think about reconstructing one of these choreographies of these people that probably I studied, and I could do an interesting work on like dance history and movement. But I think that's gonna come after I'm done with the writing. But it's
Gotcha.
interesting because I'm very interested in sort of like getting back some of the choreography that these people did.
Is there like direct video evidence, or
There
Are there other
is,
people who know some of those
there's
choreographies?
it's not
Mm-hmm.
like there's videos, most of them, sometimes some of them are pictures. So maybe if I get into the creative process of getting into these pieces, probably I'll do some sort of interpretation of it. I'm maybe looking into students. That's the whole thing, that I've been interviewing a lot of people. I'm recording these interviews and then translating it in paper. And probably I could find someone that know the choreography or one choreography by heart. But basically, the reconstructing part is very hard for like, if you're talking about pieces that are like older, no, than
Mm-hmm.
these days. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I think that's just super cool that you're spending that time researching and hopefully eventually sharing the work of these women. And
I came to Spain March 9 of March, and I think they closed down everything March 14. So it was like a couple of days after I came here, and it was like super hard because I was just like very illusion, very like super happy to be here. It was a very hardcore sacrifice for me in many ways to say goodbye to my life in Puerto Rico, just to like just sell the car and like close the house and like move. Like I moved, literally I moved to Spain, and then this happened, and it was just like mind blowing, like just like being on the outside and looking at the street, and there was nobody for months, nobody for months. So it's very interesting to see what's gonna happen, like to me and to the rest of the people that are like got into the same situation. So it's very new.
yeah,
Sometimes I like get desperate, like, oh my god, like, but then you start like calming down and seeing that at least I have health, no, at least I'm okay. And
mm-hmm.
in terms of like Spain, they did have like serious ways, no, to start locking down people and start like minimizing the movement between the provinces in Spain. In Madrid is like the capital, so they closed Madrid, they closed the airport to stop the circulation of people. And it was like very intense at the beginning, like having to have the mascarilla like all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
like being like in the public transportation. And so it was hard to accommodate, especially here, that since it's different from probably Minneapolis or Puerto Rico, that they drive more, like we drive a lot to get to places. But here it's a lot of walking, it's a lot of like public transportation, train or buses. So you have to wear it all the time, like there's no way. So it's sometimes it's just like, oh my god. But I think they're doing a good job in trying to keep the numbers down.
Our mutual, friend and colleague Susana De Palma in Minneapolis just got everybody these masks. Like the whole dance company has matching
Really?
masks, which are wonderful.
At least
Yeah,
it's fashion.
yeah.
Mine is just like a hospital one, like no
Yeah.
fashion, no rhinestones, no polka dots.
Do you have any sense of what your friends and family in Puerto Rico, like where they're
Uh,
at with it?
well, in Puerto Rico, like in many countries, third world countries, or like, it's hard because this topic of the pandemic also like mixes with like local problems that already these countries have. And Puerto Rico was just suffering from an earthquake that happened in January. This January 7, there was like this earthquake. And like 2 years ago, we had a hurricane that we're still recovering from. So like in terms of like economy, in terms of like work, there has been a lot of like exodus from people that are just like leaving the country. So it's a very very precarious moment to for Puerto Rico to like go through a pandemic. And so like in terms of like the
Yeah.
test of like if you have it or not, those
Mm-hmm.
things are very shady. Like the percentage of like if you do the test, like if you test yourself, maybe you are positive but then you don't show any symptoms, and then like you show positive again but you're like okay, and then like it's like all, there's a lot of misinformation I think in general like in the world. But
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico also like it's lacking of like having more secure numbers of like percentages of how many people are really getting sick from coronavirus or just from a normal flu, because there's
Right.
flu already also, like there's the flu season. That's what I sometimes see from here. Like I don't think there's a lot of information on like accurate information and percentages of what's happening in terms of how many people are really dying from it or how many people are just dying from a flu. And
Right.
also people are just going to the beaches every day, so it's hard to control the population, especially in an island that there's like sunny all day and like beaches everywhere and it's like a paradise. So I think people are having a hard time controlling themselves and staying at home, because I see that all the time. Like my friends are like going to the beach every day. So I don't know, I don't know. I don't think that's contributing in a way to like stop the spread of this virus. But also since there's no information or a little bit, so people are just like, "What's happening?" And then there's this whole thing about the money that has been coming from the U.S. and from the government to like sort of aid that it happened at the beginning. So I don't know. It's very complicated for everybody right now. If you don't have anything saved, money or like some sort of like some people are just like doing something different. Like I'm teaching online. Like there's people that are just reinventing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
just like selling whatever or like just people right now are just like trying to survive with what they have. And some people just left the country because it seems that it's better sometimes to just like find other places to sort of like keep going.
It's pretty crazy to me that even when you started collaborating with Zorongo here in Minneapolis, and you came and in 2019 we did the Casita project, and got to work with all the other artists and had a great time with that. But I don't really think anybody in the Twin Cities understood just quite the extent of the damage from the hurricane alone. I think it was like hard for us to fathom when you were talking about like, oh yeah, I was, you know, hiding out in the bathtub during everything that was going on, and like how long people didn't have electricity or basic needs met.
The problem of being a colony from the US and not being recognized. Of course, the people, it's not their fault, but it's also not taught in schools that we're like part of this country. I also sometimes get questions like, do you need a visa to come to the US? And I'm like, oh my God. Or sometimes they ask me, did you come driving? I'm like, wow, geography 101. So sometimes, I'm used to it, but definitely that was part of the problem. That since we're a colony, it was very hard to receive proper aid from the beginning of the catastrophe. Also, we definitely didn't have any type of preparations in terms of anything. Like just like the electricity just like collapsed, and I spent like 5 months without it. And it was just like day by day, like, oh my God, another day without electricity, like long lines just to go and get bread or like gas or like basic needs that you wouldn't think you could be in that situation, but all of a sudden you are, and you survive, and people survived, and there was a lot of help, but not help from the government or the US or any type of people like that, or it was from like organizations that a lot of people from the diaspora, since we have more Puerto Ricans in the US than in the islands. So all these people got together and helped us in like sending help like individually, and also in terms of like the neighborhoods, all the people just like started, to like get together and do the work and go to the streets and cut the trees, or like whatever it was needed to do, or like just bringing water and trying to like, especially the pueblos, like the cities that were like inside the island, like that's like more like a mountain area. So there was like people that wasn't like complete, they were like no communication from with them for like months. So people, it was just like a disaster. It was just like I can't even like think how come this happened, and we didn't have any preparations, since we are a tropical island. So it's like meant to happen. It's not the first time,
Right.
but for some reason, like in politics, or like it's not interest from for them to have the population have it like well and secure. So it was a really bad, like frustrating situation. Definitely frustration is the word that I can think when I think about Maria and the hurricane. Just frustration.
Mm-hmm. And then just, on top of that, an earthquake and then global pandemic. It's like, I feel like the only way to really start to tackle some of those issues is to have the infrastructure of like the mainland, federal government, which at the moment we don't even have to get into that. Is just, you know,
That's
insanity.
another
Yeah.
Zoom call for like 4 hours, a
Yeah.
marathon.
Gosh. Oh, so yeah, it's just sad and you're like maddening, like you said.
I also remember when the hurricane came, that I was presenting that piece that I told you about, the dance theater piece, Hijas de la Bernarda, and it was the first play that was presented in Puerto Rico after the hurricane. And people came, like a 50, 500 people, sort of around 500 people just show up in the museum, like in the patio of the museum where we presented this piece. And they pay with medicines and with like articles of like necessities, like pampers, or like just like food, canned food. Like people needed art. And it's crazy how it's the first thing that gets cut when there's like funding cuts, and it's the first thing that actually heals, or actually get people along, get people together, and like just like to dance, or to listen to music, or to watch a play, watch someone playing or dancing, or like doing something, some sort of art, just like disconnects you from your reality as a viewer, and then as an artist you also heal. So it's important to recognize that beyond everything that's happening, beyond the hurricane or the pandemia or like the earthquake, I've seen many, many, many very beautiful, interesting efforts from people, just from agriculture, like getting together and going and doing agriculture, and like just like cultivating the lands, things like that. I've seen like just people get organized, and then people are just like doing this whole uh, or like taking a school that got closed, and they're just like building a community there for like free yoga classes, or free dance classes, or free jazz concert every Sunday. Like I've seen many, many, many interesting proposals of people that are like doing things. So there's a sad part, but there's that also motivates, and there's also like a that also keeps people like, oh, this is happening, let's get into work. And that is the beautiful thing about humanity, that sometimes I give up, I'm like, oh my god, we're never gonna learn. But then you see those things and you're like, oh, there's hope.
There's people that are willing to show up and at the grassroots level help each other figure out what needs to be done, solve problems at the local level.
Exactly. And the
Yep.
local level is important because you build community, you build friends, you build connection, networks, and that's like what makes things actually work. Like we just go back to the roots. We just go back to local. We just go back to like, oh, who's my neighbor? Like I didn't know my neighbors before Maria. Like I just didn't know my neighbors. And after that, it was just like, hi, like so that's interesting, like, and that's another way of learning, and that's another way to tapping into things that really matter. Because sometimes we're like all like in work or in the technology, or everything is on Facebook or Instagram and or WhatsApp me, and we never like call each other or see each other. So it was just like this natural disaster sometimes just like help us to like, okay, let's appreciate when we see each other and talk.
And do you see any artists or know any artists right now, dance or otherwise, that are kind of making work directly about some aspect of what we're living through this year? Or
Well, actually, Susana did. We did Susana, love her with all my heart. That's like she's an angel for me in my life. We did like in, I think it was in, I don't know if it was in May or June. I don't remember exactly the month. Probably was June that she got together with all these dancers from all over the place, from California, New York, New Mexico, Spain, Sevilla. We were like all over Minneapolis. And she did this hired this composer, Jose Luis Rodriguez, to do some guitar works, like these short pieces for 10 days, and we had to construct this choreography in 24 hours. So it was sometimes choreography, but it was sometimes structure improv. Some of them I did more like improvising to the music. And that was a way of working out and finding inspiration through the pandemia. Because then after we upload the video, then we had a Zoom call with everybody, and we spoke with each other for an hour every day for 10 days. So we talked about how was our process, where were we, like the confrontations, like, oh my god, this problem, things about technology, but also things about life, like, oh my god, I'm in this state right now, or like I'm getting married, or oh my god, I am heartbroken, or like you started like knowing the people that were behind the dance, like you started like meeting these people and like really getting into like know each other. And it was beautiful, it was healing too, like just to like connect with these people from all over the world that we were just like dancing to the same tune. And that was so I Susana is an example of things that are getting done here in Spain. Some of the tablaos, most of them are closed. Probably the ones that are more touristic, sort of like got more work or like more movement. But basically, almost everything is closed. So what I'm seeing is that some of the dance schools like Amor de Dios, which is this very important school in a place called Anton Martin. It's just like a steps of Broadway in New York. It's just like this place that you go and take all the classes you want. Um, they are doing concerts there with all the requirements and all the measurements of the pandemic, with the mask and everything, and like less people, blah blah blah, blah. But there is some movement, there's people just trying to do things like that. There's another school called El Lucero, which I recently saw some of my friends from the US that were dancing there. And it's the same thing, like they just like have this dance studio, and they just like put like black fabric, and they put lights, and here we go. Let's make it happen. So there's like also talking about reinvention. There's people trying to make it out for people just to like work, because some of these artists, they don't have a second job. Some of them just dance, just make music, just sing. And it's hard. It's hard when you do one thing. It's hard when you're so good at one, only one thing, that all of a sudden the world's not made for you. I don't know. It's just super hard.
You know, a lot of these tablaos traditionally are very intimate spaces, right, where the audience gets to like sit close together and they're right up front, you know, watching the performers, and so it's like, what do you know, you have to reinvent it, like you said.
Exactly. You have to separate. They were separating. Like I went to one in Amor de Dios, and also in the Lucero, and there were like two people, like two seats, and there was one space, one seat space, two seats. They were like just like locating people around the room, but with a lot of space, and they are like very serious about the measurements. Sometimes I think it's crazy. As training is super hard, because first you go to the place, you have to do the hand sanitizer, you gotta wear the mask. In ballet, I'm taking ballet classes every day, and you have to take the class with the mask, and it's super hard. It's like you have a prop from theater, like you're all of a sudden dancing and like turning with this thing on, and you can't breathe, and it's super hard. Oh my god, we're like just like getting used to so many crazy things that will have us talking for a long time.
You know, are people gonna like shake hands after this? Like, are you gonna like kiss on both cheeks in Europe? Like, who knows, you know?
Yeah, I think the cultures are very, very, very casual. Like we love to kiss and hug, and in general, like I've seen many friends of mine that are sometimes they're like, "Oh my god, this is too crowded. I'm not going in," and they just like break the entire like, like you're having fun and being like, oh, and they're all of a sudden like, clack, I want to go home, and you're like, why? It's too crowded. And sometimes, like I have friends like that, and sometimes I'm like, oh my god, just you're just like ruin my night. And I think it's in terms of psychology, like in terms of like mental health. We're not talking about this yet. We're talking about all the people that are dying because of the virus, but we're not talking about how this is affecting us in a mental way, like in mental issue, like in depression, like, and that's gonna come.
Oh my goodness, just the all the layers of isolation that we deal with, you know, and how that makes things like depression, anxiety, and other issues that much worse, you know. It's really tough.
At least we have art. And I've been dancing. I danced a lot through the pandemia. I recorded myself a lot. Like I did these online classes with Susana with the distant videos. So I'm thankful that at least I have an outlet. But there's a lot of people that don't know what an outlet is. And that's, that's why arts again are a way of healing, are a way of understanding like things that we can sometimes can't say. And then comes art to express it in other ways that are not words.
You probably already know, or will be happy to find out that Susanna is going to show the Decameron piece in this kind of like outdoor. It's a music venue, but it'll be kind of like a drive-in movie theater
Oh
almost.
my god,
That's
that's
this
super
next week.
cool.
Yeah,
Really? Oh
yeah,
my god.
that's this coming Wednesday. She'll show the movie when people drive in, and then there will be a performance afterwards. So
I love
it'll be
it.
super awesome to see it
Are
and
you
see what.
gonna play? Are you gonna
Hmm.
play in the performance? Yay! So how you been? Have you been playing, practicing? How is it for you?
I've been practicing a lot and just composing a lot of music. I think there is the challenge, and teaching guitar lessons and things like that. But there is a huge challenge because for a lot of what we do as artists, like collaboration live is really a huge part of that because you can't perform with people over Zoom. So it's just like, how do
Yeah.
you practice those skills of interacting and improvising with other people, and do it outside or distant in the studio. So there are ways, but it's tough.
I also felt that I read a lot. Like there's things that couldn't do if I was working or if I was just like busy. And that's, I think, the good way, the good thing that I can take out of this, no, at least from all the struggle that I know people have gone through. You can always take something and be thankful for.
Aside from your research right now, are there artistic projects or choreographies or improvisations that you are working on at the moment that you'd like to share?
I did one last week when my teacher passed away. I did as a sort of like I composed a video because when I got the news, I was actually dancing. It was very bizarre. I was like recording myself and dancing when I got the messenger, and I was like, "Oh my god, no!" And I started crying and all the touching part. But then I decided to record myself after I knew what happened. So I recorded myself like feeling like crying, and like I composed this video and put the background music. It was the part of the interview, that one of the interviews that I did with my teacher. So it's just like her talking and me just like doing contemporary moves and in an improvisation way. So that's like the latest. I think I've been doing a lot of solo work, a lot of contemporary. I don't know why, because I've been training in flamenco, but for some reason, like that's how my body is just feeling right now. So a lot of impro, a lot of just like playing music and just like trying to like keep moving, keeps like understanding how where my body wants to go on on space. So I've been just like working on that and recording myself a lot. So that's basically my artistic work right now. Hopefully, in the future, I can connect with the dance community here in flamenco or contemporary. But right now, like I'm just focusing on that, on personal, site specific explorations.
Where can people go online to enjoy some of your choreographies or your improvisations or just
I
find out
have
more
a
about your work?
I have a page in Vimeo. I have like this the Vimeo platform. It's like a YouTube, and I actually upload almost all my videos. And actually, I have a lot of videos from Minneapolis from the first time I went there for doing Garden of Names. So I've been doing this thing of improvisation and recording a lot from a long time already. So I've done many recordings, and they're all uploaded in that page. And it's my name. It's just Jean Casas Panus. I know it's complicated. It's like Joan of Arc, but in French. I know it's like a warrior. Wait, I got my sword here. It's my French mother. And then my last name, which is Casas, like houses, and Panus is Panouze. And you'll just like if you write it all, you're gonna see like all my videos there. Lots of
Perfect.
contemporary, and like I'll do a lot of work with the bata de cola, which is like more my specialty in flamenco. And then I do a lot of exploration with changing levels. With the bata de cola, I explore how to the fall and the recovery of the body in space. So it's very interesting work that I've been doing for a long time already. So that's like more myself, like what I do without, because I do a lot of collaborations, like what like we did with Susanna and with other people like in the dance community. But my personal work, like as a soloist, I would say, or like myself, is that it's like I've been exploring a lot the bata de cola concept, but like just decontextualizing it from the flamenco attire, or like women attire, like traditional, and I'm just like taking it to another place and like playing a lot of with the negative space, you know, like if I have this space here, it's the negative space, but if you have fabric, then it just like constructs another movement. It deconstructs another image. So I've been working a lot with that, and also with the falling and the recovering in space. So it's been a really interesting journey already.
Feel like a lot of dancers here, in Minnesota, and elsewhere, certainly, and maybe visual artists could learn a lot from that. So I will definitely put a link in the video. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. This was really cool, and it was great to see you again and
Thank you
hear
a
what you've
lot,
been
and
working
I
on.
love Minneapolis so much. And I hope I can go back and keep dancing and just like enjoying the city. Every time I go, I just have a blast with the people. Like there's just beautiful, beautiful energy there. And I hopefully I'll come back and dance more.
For sure, you will. Yeah, we love you in Minneapolis, and best of luck on your research, and we want to hear all about it. So
Thank you, and thank you so
yeah.
much.